Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have a brand new deck for you, but before that, just a quick reminder to please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and every single click counts. And today's deck is going to be centered around Taeko, the Patient Avalanche. For 3 colorless and 1 blue, it's a legendary creature, Turtle Ninja 4/5 with Taeko, the Patient Avalanche enters tapped. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it didn't die, scry 1 and put a +1/+1 counter on Taeko, and whenever Taeko attacks, you may pay a hybrid Dimir. When you do, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. So this, as we mentioned in our article during spoiler season, looks very interesting for a few different reasons. Mostly, it's a decent ninja commander that isn't overpowered, and that's not what we're going to be focusing entirely on here, but it is part of the deck because a lot of good ninjas work well with this card. However, what we're trying to go with this deck is more for a flicker deck, or a deck where you're bouncing cards to hand and recasting them to get their value over and over. So we have a lot of cards with good ETBs, a few ways to interchange cards in hand with cards in play, and just ways to accrue value over time. We're not looking for a combo kill here, though obviously being able to scry and grow Taeko every time we bounce something is very powerful. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump right in, and we're starting out with Agent of Treachery. Now this is good in any blink deck because stealing something is just one of the most powerful things you can do, and late game it can even draw you some cards. Archaeomancer is going to work nicely with the instants and sorceries we're running. We even have some nice little combos with something like Ghostly Flicker. Baleful Strix is one of the best things you can do in an Enter the Battlefield deck. For just 2 mana, you get to draw a card and dissuade people from attacking you. Changeling Outcast works well with our Minor Ninjutsu sub-theme. We also have a few cards, such as Cloudstone Curio, that want us to bounce stuff to hand and replay it, and this being very cheap helps with that. Deadeye Navigator is excellent in any Flicker deck, and this is just a great way to gain an insurmountable advantage and also protect our creatures. Displacer Kitten is very powerful. We are running quite a few non-creature spells, so being able to get our ETBs again is strong. Dowerport Mage should draw us a lot of cards, seeing as it draws every time we flicker something and every time we bounce something. Enduring Curiosity is going to be very solid here because we have a lot of evasive creatures that are going to be dealing damage, and drawing cards is just always good. Fairy Seer is great because it fits both halves of our deck very well. It comes in for cheap, works well with ninjutsu, and also has an ETB, so we couldn't really ask for much more. Fallen Shinobi is amazing to ninjutsu onto something. It's also great with our commander because we can make it unblockable. Brazilax Illithid Scholar makes combat a nightmare for our opponents. They either take the damage or we get to bounce stuff back to our hand and recast it to get its ETBs again. Ingenious Infiltrator is really good, just like Fallen Shinobi. We can use it to rebuy an ETB, and we can also just make it unblockable with our commander. Inkai's Servant of Oni works in a similar way to the other ninjutsu cards, but this one has a much more powerful trigger by being able to reanimate something. Miss Syndicate Naga can get really powerful late in the game, particularly since we have ways to make it unblockable. Mistblade Shinobi is on the weaker end of the ninjutsu cards that we're playing, but that being said, being able to bounce an opposing creature can still be very good for tempo. Moldrifter is great for its evoke cost, and it's great to just have him play and then bounce back to our hand later. Very, very solid, particularly with our instant speed bounce effects. Ninja of the Deep Hours is a nice solid filler card that's going to draw us a few cards. Orochi Soul Reaver can get us up to 3 treasures per combat, which is very powerful, and being able to manifest stuff is also quite good. Peregrine Drake is great for doubling up in our turns, and it's also a nice combo piece with stuff like Deadeye Navigator. Phyrexian Metamorph is really powerful, being able to copy the best thing on the battlefield, and since we can reset it over and over in our deck, it's going to be very good. Prosperous Thief can again make up to 3 treasures per combat step, which is incredibly good. Ravenous Chupacabra is nice removal on a creature, which is always important. Satoru the Infiltrator kind of does what our commander does, but instead of scrying, it's going to draw us cards, so it's one of the best cards in the deck. Silent Blade Oni is an ninjutsu card that provides a very tangible benefit for connecting with our opponents. Slither Blade is another one of those cards that comes down early, works well with our ninjutsu, and can just be recast for cheap. Solemn Simulacrum has a really powerful ETB, particularly in these colors which don't ramp so well. Spark Double is similar to Phyrexian Metamorph. It copies the best thing on the board, but this one can also copy our commander. That's a Deep Dwelling provides an insane amount of value in this deck. There's almost always going to be something good to blink. Thousand Face Shadow is another really powerful one because it has flying, comes down for 1 mana, and we can also just ninjutsu it to get an extra copy of something for extra value. Triton Shore Stalker is another one of our enablers that come down for cheap, and we can use them to ninjutsu things. And Yuriko the Tiger's Shadow was always going to be in a deck like this. It's much less egregious in the 99, so people can't hate on it that much. Moving on to sorceries, we've got to highlight Consuming Tide. This is the perfect card for this deck. Basically, we get to bounce everything except one creature. So we're going to choose to bounce all of our board except our commander most of the time. That's going to mean that our commander gets a bunch of counters and scries and can then attack very easily into our opponent. For instance, Essence Flux is going to be a great way to rebuy ETBs for very cheap. Familiar's Ruse is a great counter spell that allows us to bounce a creature to our hand, thus working well with our commander. Ghostly Flicker is part of a couple of combos in this deck and can help us KO our opponents out of nowhere sometimes. Runaway Together is incredibly solid in this deck. We can potentially protect one of our own creatures and rebuy its ETB whilst messing with our opponents. And Teferi's Time Twist is yet another way to blink stuff at instant speed. Moving on to artifacts, Cloudstone Curio is a very important card in the deck. We're going to get to bounce a lot of stuff to hand with this, and it really allows for some very powerful plays, particularly if we have something like Peregrine Drake. Conjurer's Closet is another copy of Thassa Deep Dwelling, which is always very good. Panharmonicon is going to make sure that we get a lot of value out of our creatures. This is a really powerful effect in the deck. And moving on to enchantments, we have Cunning Evasion, which is great because it provides another copy of Grazilax, essentially. Equilibrium is really good for rebuying our ETBs on our creatures. It's like a slightly worse, but also slightly more flexible version of Cloudstone Curio because, of course, it can bounce our opponent's things. Gossip's Talent is really powerful. It does everything this deck could want to do. It grants evasion, it gives our creatures ETB triggers, and it allows us to blink our creatures as well. So all of this is incredibly relevant. Reconnaissance Mission is really good because it can either be an extra way to draw cards or just a very nice card to cycle away. And Virtue of Knowledge, Vantress Visions is excellent in both sides. The instant part is obviously very good because we can just copy a trigger. There's a lot of good triggers in this deck. And if we ever cast it for the front side, it's basically another copy of Panharmonicon, which is of course incredibly good. Finally, moving on to lands, we're running Mystic Sanctuary. We have some pretty good instants or sorceries in the deck, so rebuying them seems quite good. And Rogue's Passage is just another way to make sure that our creatures get through, which is kind of important. So there you have it. That has been our Taeko the Patient Avalanche deck tech. What do you think about this one? Are you excited to finally dust off your ninjas and put them in a shell that isn't broken? Are there any cards you think I should have added or any things you think I shouldn't have included? Let me know in the comment section below. I make sure to always read all of your comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.